All right, welcome back from spring break. I hope y'all had a great one. I hope you're ready to learn. If you notice, this says Pythagorean Theorem test review. Yes, you have to take a test. You will take a test through a Google quiz, a Google form, and it will count as a test grade. Most of it is multiple choice, some is fill in the blank. All right, so first, you need to be able to validate the proof of the Pythagorean Theorem. If you notice, this is typically what it will look like. They go ahead and label A, B, and C here. Those represent the side lengths and the hypotenuse. So 2 legs and my hypotenuse. So you kind of have to analyze this. If you look at A, the length of A is 3 units. They have squared it, made it 3 by 3 to make it a square. That gives us 9 units. So that represents 3 squared. So if I think of the Pythagorean theorem, that would be my A squared. Next, I will have my B squared. So the length of B is 4 units. I'm going to square that. So if you notice in yellow, that gives me 16 squares. So these blocks represent that side length squared. My C, I can count here. They went ahead and gave it to me. That's 5 units. And they are squaring it as well, okay? Because the formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So that gives me a total of 25. So when I square this 5, I get 25. Now, for this to work, this is the proof of the Pythagorean theorem. They're proving it. 9 plus 16 is 25. So some key words you need to know here is that they took the side lengths, 3, 4, and 5, and they squared them. And they checked to see if the 2 legs squared equaled the hypotenuse squared. If it does, this does prove the Pythagorean theorem. They may have these different lengths here, but you're just checking the side lengths and seeing when you square them and add them together if they equal the hypotenuse squared. So you're just analyzing a picture there. Next, to the following side lengths make a right triangle. So you're analyzing this without a picture. So first, you need to make sure you find your hypotenuse. The way you can tell it's your hypotenuse, because remember, it's always the longest length. Always, always, always in a right triangle. It's always the longest length. So I know here 5 is my hypotenuse. So I can just plug these in. 3 squared plus 4 squared and check to see if that equals 5 squared. Well, we literally just did this exact problem. So 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. That does equal 25. That means this is a right triangle. And you could still use the shortcut here if you like it. Remember, the shortcut was the square root of the legs squared. So this will be 3 squared plus 4 squared, and check to see if that equals 5. All right, so this next one, we need to find the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 14 because it's the largest number. So this will be 7 squared, plus 8 squared, and we're checking to see if that equals 14 squared. So you could utilize your calculator here. 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64. So you're adding those to see if they equal 14 squared. So 49 plus 64, see if that equals 14 squared, which is 196. When you add these up, 49 plus 64, you only get 113. Since those are not equal, this is not a right triangle. This does not make a right triangle. All right, so try the last one. Your C value will be 25 because it's the largest. And I'm going to use the shortcut here. So this will be 10 squared plus 15 squared, all underneath the square root. And if this is a perfect right triangle, if it is a right triangle, this should equal exactly 25 when I calculate it. And it equals about 18.0, so about 18. So this is not a right triangle because they are not equal. These combinations are called Pythagorean triples. 3, 4, and 5 is a common, that's probably the most common Pythagorean triple. There are a whole list of them. I think when you get to college, you'll probably have to memorize the first 50 or 100 of them. So that is a Pythagorean triple. You're proving to see if it makes a right angle. All right, next, Miss Griggs bought a new gripper and needs it shipped to her house. The company only has boxes with the dimensions of 3 meters, 6 meters, and 5 meters as shown below. what is the longest whole number length that the grippers can be? So if you notice now, we've added an extra dimension. This is no longer a two-dimensional shape. This is a three-dimensional figure. We're seeing if it will fit into a box. So if you notice, we have these measurements labeled here where the 5 meters and 6 meters make the base. So in order to find if this gripper can fit diagonally along this blue line, I would first need to find this hypotenuse, the red line, then use that hypotenuse as a leg with the 3 and find my new hypotenuse. Luckily for us, there is a shortcut to this, and it is super easy. So what you do on the shortcut is you take the square root of all 3 dimensions, and you square them. So 6 squared plus 5 squared plus 3 squared, and that will give you this blue line going diagonally through the box. So you put those all underneath the square root and square them. You can use your calculator for this, or you can do it manually. That gives me 8.37. And we're talking meters here. So this line is 8.37 meters. So they want to know what is the longest whole number length that the grippers can be. So if I look at this, I know that I'm not going to round this up because 9 would not fit. So that means the longest whole number length that the grippers can be is 8 meters. And that would fit diagonally inside of the box. So that's the rule for all of these. We'll go ahead and work another problem just to give you some practice. Ari wants to bring her softball bat on vacation. Her suitcase dimensions are 6 inches by 6 inches by 20 inches. Will her 22-inch softball bat fit in her suitcase? So if you kind of look at the box, the S would be the first hypotenuse. Then we would use that as a leg. But remember, we're just going to use the shortcut here. We're going to take all 3 of our dimensions and square root them. So we're taking the square root of, let me move down a little bit, square root of 20 squared plus 6 squared plus 6 squared. We're going to evaluate that. That equals approximately, so I'm going to go ahead and use approximately, about 21.73 inches. Alright, so Ari's softball bat is 22 inches in length. We need to know, will that fit? Now, a lot of people will miss this because they will take 21.7, they'll round it up to 22, and say, yes, the bat will fit. But think about it. If that length diagonally is only 21.73, her bat is 22, it's going to hang over the edge, and it will not fit in her suitcase. It will be just a little bit short. We have to round down here. 21 inches or 21.7 inches will be the most that could fit. Since this is 22, it will not fit in the suitcase. It is just a little bit too long. She needs a 21-inch bat would fit, but a 22 would not. All right, next. Here's some other variations of how the formula can be altered for the Pythagorean theorem. This example was from Denasia. Denasia and Tamia decided to fly a kite. Tamia let out 550 feet of the string and held it. Then Denasia walked 500 feet away from Tamia till the kite was directly above her head. How high was the kite? Now, if you notice, she already has her example, and she already has the answer here. This should be H. Held it. There we go. But if I rewrote this Pythagorean theorem, if I rewrote the equation, this is the square root of c squared, so that's 550 squared, minus my leg length. So these are some variations that they might write to help you solve this. If this were just in terms, this could be c squared minus a squared, or c squared minus b squared. So just know they may write this formula in different ways. They may not even have the square root. They may write it in this form, 500 squared plus b squared equals 550 squared. So you will have to analyze different formulas on this test and figure out which one works. So just try them out to see which one works. Here's another example. Gabe and Griffin are being noisy in class. Miss Griggs asked them to run diagonally from one corner of the football practice field to another corner of the football field after class. The field is a large rectangle measuring 350 feet long and 230 feet wide. Thank you, Lane, for this question. How many feet will Gabe and Griffin run if they run it 2 times? So she went ahead and put the work there for us to analyze. So we had a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Our lengths were 350 feet and 230 feet. So that gives you about 418.81 feet, but they had to run it twice, so we would have to multiply that by 2. Good example. And that will help you practice if you need it. All right, next, this example is from Justin. A sandwich cut in 2 parts diagonally has a side A of 5 inches and a side B of 4 inches. We want to find the hypotenuse. Since we're given the legs, we will add them. So we will take the square root of 5 squared plus 4 squared, and that does equal about 6.40 inches. Okay, so that's all we need to add here is inches to get full credit. Do not forget your units on this test because you will miss it. Next, we have an example from Grace. Jalen wants to paint a wall of his house in 2 different colors and is going to put tape diagonally across a wall to mark out the different sides. His wall is 8 feet high and 12 feet across. How long of a piece of tape does he need? So if you think about this rectangle, my legs will be 8 and 12. So 8 feet high and 12 feet across. We're finding the hypotenuse. So we will add 8 squared plus 12 squared. And that will equal approximately 14.42 feet long. Good job using the units there. All right, here's another example. I walked 8 blocks east and then 6 blocks south to go to school. I think this was Inuit. Good job here. When they're giving you directions like due east, due south, they mean a straight line. Okay, those directions are straight lines. And then typically they ask you how many blocks will I walk if I went straight home or if I returned the shortest distance, something like that. So in this example, Inuit would walk 10 blocks straight home from school. Now, this is a challenge question on the test. On the test, they ask about the total distance that Inuit walked. So if you think about it, he walked 8, 6, and then the 10 to return home. You would need to add all 3 of those. So he would walk total 24 blocks. So please pay attention. If it's asking for the total, you can't put 10 because that's just the distance walking to home from school. If it asks for the total, you need to add all of the lengths up. Pretty much the perimeter there. All right, so that's it for your review. There are 10 questions on the test. Do your best and make sure you have a calculator ready.